What's up, guys? So today I'm going to show you my process on how I level attackers, which skills are necessary, which ones are important and have some hidden benefits. I'm also going to discuss which playstyles are best. So is goal poacher better than fox in the box, or deep line forward for wingers, prolific winger versus Roman flank, and also my favorite skill, most underrated one, of deep line forward, and also the benefits of inactive playstyles in attackers. So I do have a long list of what I'm going to talk about. You can see here I have some notes here that's going to help me. So we'll get into it. I'm going to start off with the process of leveling the builds. So the goal of your midfielders is to get your attackers into goal scoring opportunities, but sometimes that can't be done. So you're going to need players with high dribbling to work the chances with your strikers. So if we look at a player like Rumi, so Rumi is a very high rated attacker in this game. A lot of people like him a lot. I think he's quite decent. I don't think he's the best. And it's because his dribbling isn't the highest. Now, obviously, I can change his build here and level them differently, but I have done it before. I've done two reviews of this Roomy with different builds a few months back, and I tried a build with 90 on tight possession and stuff, and I felt like his dribbling wasn't very effective. You can see here with this build, though, he has 90 balance, and his dribbling is effective. So the importance of balance is paramount, and it also comes into play because when you level balance, you also level acceleration and offensive awareness. So acceleration is very important. I'll get into that later. And then actually attacking awareness here at the top isn't that important, and I'll get into that after we talk about dribbling. So high balance on a player can mitigate low dribbling. We talked about that in my midfielders guide with Mateus and N'Golo Kante, but it's particularly the type of dribbling that the balance helps with is sprint dribbling. You can see here Rumi is quite fast. I gave him 101 speed as well as the 99 acceleration. If we look at a different player like Messi, he has higher tight possession but lower speed. Same with this Maradona and this Maradona too. So when you're leveling strikers, there's going to be two types of dribblers. Actually, there's going to be three types of dribblers. There's going to be the really good dribblers like a Messi, a Maradona, a Romario, and let's say a Saviola. There's going to be the mid-level ones like a Rumi, a Van Basten, and a Michael Owen. And then there's going to be players that are just bad at dribbling, like a Haaland or Ronaldo does have good stats on dribbling, but his acceleration is low, so he's actually not a great dribbler in the game. And more importantly, I forgot to say it, but his balance is low, which is probably a bigger factor than the lower acceleration. So if we start off with the mid-level dribblers, you can see that I'm trying to get their dribbling basically above 80. The reason I have Rumi on 79 is because I use him as a super sub, so I get the boost from the super sub. It should take him to 80. If I started Rumi, I would change his build. I don't know what I would take off. I would probably take off the lower body strength or something, but the problem with that is then you're not getting the 85 boost. So for Rumi, I felt like leveling him high into dribbling didn't work. I was better off putting the balance into him to get it to 85 and then 88 with the +3 and then +2 for the 90 and making him a more well-rounded card. So he's like a mid-tier dribbler for me. A player like Messi is a high-tier dribbler. And you can see here when I leveled him, I made his acceleration a lot higher than his speed. And then same with Romario, I prioritized his acceleration compared to his speed. The reason high-tier dribblers would have lower speed, I mean, if you can get them at high speed, obviously, it would be effective. Maradona is basically split because he can dribble both ways I want them to dribble. So a mid-tier dribbler is best at kind of full sprint speeding and making up a lot of ground very quickly, whereas a Messi, who would be the high-tier dribbler, he isn't actually focused on running at full speed. He's focused on when your opponent is parked in his box and you need to wiggle in and out of the park the bus. You need the dribbling to be good over the very short distances to beat a kind of park in the bus opponent or a five at the back. So you wouldn't really need speed for that type of dribbling. Speed is only for the type of dribbling where, let's say you were playing Rumi. Let's say my opponent's playing five at the back. If I were to use this lineup in terms of we look at the dribbling, the two players I would play up front are either Messi or Romario, just because he has the ball control and tight possession, the balance and the acceleration. And then Messi's the same. If I played Rumi up here, he doesn't have the tight possession or the ball control. He does have the acceleration and the balance though, but he doesn't have the ball control and tight possession to kind of weave in and out of a crowded out box. So if I was playing a five at the back, I would line up like this and have Rumi out wider so he can pick up the ball on the edge of the box and kind of run across into more space, kind of not into the defenders. It's kind of away to defenders because he doesn't have the kind of technical abilities to slow down as good as the other guys. Now he still will be a very effective dribbler. If I compare him to Michael Owen. Michael Owen doesn't have as good balance, actually. We'll look at Michael Owen. He has 85 balance on this build and 85 tight possession. Rumi feels like a better dribbler for me than Michael Owen. So it kind of shows you what balance is good for and I talked about in the midfielder video, it's good for kind of the full sprint dribbling. For these little tiny dribbles in the box, though, you need the tight possession and hopefully the ball control. The ball controls, though, is just for the first touch, and then it also determines how quickly the animations or skill moves are performed. Messi's 103 tight possession, though, kind of, and the acceleration kind of counteracts that lower ball control. So if we look at Rumi's build again, why have we only given him 90 finishing? Why haven't we given him more? Well, if we look at him, he's already got 9 points into shooting, so we're already investing a lot. And every point after 8, I think it's +3 progression points it costs. So it gets very expensive. So you could do a build with 95 finishing. You would need to put 12 points in, and we've already put 13 points in dexterity, so it definitely is within the realms of possibility. But as I said, if we go for that amount of points on shooting, we've only got 32 points left to work with, and if we want to get the balance to the stat it was at, it would only have 4 points after that, and then he's just not well rounded enough elsewhere after that. He can get his lower body up a little bit, but he won't be as fast, and then he won't be as strong with his kicking power. And as we said, the 90 balance is compensating for the dribbling we had, but this dribbling is too low. That dribbling won't be effective with 90 balance. So that's why we went for 90 finishing. Now, why didn't we go for 91, 92? Maybe just squeeze a little bit extra. From my years of playing this game, thousands of hours, I feel like finishing should either be 90 or 95 or 100 if you can get it up there. Any little increment in between that, personally, I haven't noticed it. I think it's because of threshold theory. People older than me are always saying that stats only improve at 90 and 95, like they only improve in lots of 5. I don't believe that. That's like a very strong form belief about the thresholds. I do think there is going to be differences between 90 and 94. I just don't think it's worth the investment, because I do think there's a major difference between 90 and 95. I think you do notice a considerable jump between, you would notice a jump between 94 and 95 more than you would notice a jump between 90 and 94. So you kind of should be within the bounds of these thresholds. Now, if you have an extra stat left over, put it in. It's not a problem. That's why I either go for 90 or 95, and then I have used 100 finishing before, and I did notice it being effective. I think I took off the build. Yeah, I was using that on David Villa. The 100 finishing on him definitely was effective, but I've just decided to try a different kind of build. And then also, you can also go for 88 finishing. The reason you would do this is because you're getting the +2 boost from form. So that would take it to 90 and get it to that threshold. For strikers, though, I would put 90 on just because you need them to be more consistent, and you want them to be as clinical as they should be in every game. Whereas an attacking midfielder or an SS, which I use Bellingham in, you can kind of rely on, okay, some games he's not going to be, as clinical as he can be with 90 finishing, but you're getting strengths elsewhere in all the other attributes. So we've explained the concept of why acceleration is more important for attackers, but if you're using a player like Rumi, a mid-tier dribbler, you'd want to go more into pace. Another player like that would be Samuel Eto'o, who actually has the stats of like a low-tier dribbler, but he's actually quite good in the game for some reason. I think maybe it's player ID. Some of these guys, like, you can play them unleveled and they're still effective. A player like that would be Hullet. So some guys are just better than their stats, player ID. So Eto'o would be one of them. Now you can see, actually, I do have Eto's build wrong because I had it from a few months ago. So if we re-level him here, I'll explain what I'm thinking. So we had it on 7-2 like this. And then this is the build we ended up with. So we actually did go above 90 finishing. We went to 91, but that's just to get the curl to 80. And then we gave the extra point into dribbling to get the tight possession to 70. So we're not relying on the boost form to get us to that threshold of 80 tight possession. So now we're going to talk about which skills are necessary on attackers. I don't think there's many. I think there's only 2 that are 100% necessary. And it would be first time shot and acrobatic finishing, which Rumi starts with both. Whereas a player like Messi, he starts with first time shot, and I had to put acrobatic finishing on him. So those 2 are the only 100% necessary skills, in my opinion. I think there's a skill that's 99% necessary, and that is true passing. So you can see on Rumi, I put true passing on him, put true passing on Romario, and Eto'o too. So even if they have low passing, it's still good. The reason is, I talked about it in my midfielders video. We believe that true passing gives a +20% boost into low pass. So I would put it on all my strikers just to help that when they're creating chances. Now, another skill that a lot of people recommend as necessary, which I don't think is, for attackers anyway, is one-touch pass. I do think it's necessary for midfielders, and I think I had it as necessary for defenders, or very, very important. The reason I don't think it's necessary on attackers is because the types of passes you do at attackers are usually 1-2 passes, and if you've played this game, you'll know yourself that 1-2 passes seem to be kind of more magnetic and more accurate, more powerful, etc., etc. Now, I do have one touch pass on Rumi. That's just because I said for the longest time you don't need one touch pass on your players. People in my chat were telling me to put it on. It is necessary, so I tried it out. Tried it with Rumi and I tried it with Martinelli. This is maybe 3 weeks ago, and since doing it, I've noticed no improvement, and I don't think Oh, I took one touch pass back off Martinelli. So yeah, I don't think there's any improvement. It's just because when you do a one touch or a 1-2 pass with your striker, if it's a 1-2, either you do a first time pass and then you're already getting the boost because it's a 1-2 pass and L1X. Either then you're taking the touch and then doing the 1-2, which you won't need one touch pass for. And then when you're doing the return ball, half time is going to be with a midfielder who probably does have one touch pass anyway, and I did recommend it on them. Now I don't think the one touch pass is helping that, but if you do believe it is anyway, it'll be on your midfielders. And anyway, if you're going to another attacker, the return passes on 1-2s are also more accurate if you've noticed. So I don't think one touch pass is necessary. Another skill that a lot of people recommend is outside curler, which is one I also really don't like on strikers, for two reasons. One, I think if you have very high weak foot, I would rather just hit it with their left foot. Unfortunately, Rumi has outside curler by default, so I can't, I'm stuck with outside curler, but I think it's way less effective than a normal finesse shot. And then secondly, a lot of strikers start with low curl. You can see all the top tier strikers. Rumi has 79, Romario has 78, Eto only has 80, and Villa, who has 80 as well. And he'd be good at finesse shots. So they all have low curl, and I think curl is very important for outside curlers. So I did put it on my Messi for two reasons. One, he doesn't have very high weak foot. Actually three reasons. Two, I wouldn't play him out wide. I would play him in the middle. And then three, he has the very high curl and the high finishing. But I don't think curl is important. Sorry, I don't think outside curler is effective really, unless you have very high curl, and most of your attackers don't have high curl. I mean, it'd be very rare. The only reason Messi has it is because he's actually really an attacking midfielder or an SS by default. He's not actually really usually a centre forward. On the contrary, though, while I think curl is very important for outside curler, I don't think it's actually involved really in normal finesse shots when you're in the box. Particularly, like as I said, all the top tier strikers don't have high curl, and you probably haven't really noticed many problems with their finesse shots. And Eto is actually the example of when I kind of learned this for myself. So Eto, as I said, has a really good goals to game ratio for me. He's very effective. But the first 50 games I had with him, he was very poor for me. He probably had 50 games and maybe 12 goals or something. So he was really not good. And if I looked at his stats, he had high finishing and high kicking power. So I was just hitting normal power shots with him, not having much success. Then I hit a finesse shot with him, went in, another one went in, and then I started, okay, this guy's good at finesse shots, and it really confused me. So that's gonna kind of I first thought it was player ID for Eto. Thought it was right. Specifically, Eto's good at finesse shots. For some reason, he just doesn't have a good curl. But over time, then I actually looked. I never really. This is months ago, so I never even looked at like my Romario, my Rumi, and noticed no, their curl is low too, and I don't have any problems with their finesse shots. So I think kicking power is more important. Now, if you're going from a longer distance, curl might come into effect more. You might need more curl. So like a Neymar, who would be strong, particularly with the knock-on finesse from distance, he'd be good. And then Hullet, he has high curl as well, and he's good at range. So I wouldn't actually say Eto, or I wouldn't say any of these players are good at long-range finesse shots with a low curl, but in the box they're perfect, very consistent, particularly Eto. So I think for finesse shots, if you're in the box, you don't need curl, you just need kick and power and finishing. You might not even need the kick and power, but I would be hard to test that because I don't think there'd be many players with low kick and power and high finishing. So yeah, that's why I don't think you need to worry too much about leveling your curl, and you should just consider it. Another player actually who, if off the top of my head, is very good at finesse shots. Okay, he does have high curl though, so yeah, it's not a good example. But this is actually a good example of a player. By the way, if you have Adriano, hit finesse shots with him. I know he has the high curl, so you might have already thought about that. But yeah, he's very good at finesse shots too. What else? So I think I talked about one touch pass is useless, true passing is important. Okay, super sub. So my Romario here, he got very respectable goals to game ratio, but he's not as good as the one on my free to play account, the one that just came out last week, the Barcelona version. That one has, I think it was 50 games, 81 goals, and 17 assists. So that one is a lot better. There's two reasons for that. Well, two potential reasons. One, doesn't he doesn't have AI playing styles on the Barcelona version, whereas this one he does. There was Chinese content creators who, before the new Mario came out, they saw that he didn't have the AI playing styles, and they said this one will be a lot better because he doesn't have the AI playing styles. I don't understand it. I don't know why that is the case. These guys seem to know what they're talking about because I have both versions. I've tried out either one of my other accounts, and he's very, very effective. So that's one potential reason why I think that Mario is better. But also, this one has 95 offensive awareness. On my other one, I also have 95 offensive awareness, but I have 100 balance. So this one starts off with higher offensive awareness than the other ones, and I don't think it helps. I don't think offensive awareness is useful or important, except for there is one caveat. I'll get to that in a moment. So I don't, when I look at my strikers, I don't care about the offensive awareness. Furumi doesn't have great offensive awareness. Eto starts off with high offensive awareness, so does Via. But let me look at other ones. Martinelli doesn't have great offensive awareness. Messi doesn't have great offensive awareness. I mean, he has 90, so it's good, but it's not a attribute that I'm trying to improve particularly. And then Maradona, who I think is probably the best centre forward, has quite low offensive awareness in comparison, or attacking awareness. Now the caveat though is, if your player has super sub, I do think it is important. And I'll show you why. So Konami don't tell us what super sub does on a player. They don't tell us what the boost is. But if we go back to PES 18, we had the information on what the arrows do. Now the arrows are obviously not the super sub. Well, there might be. We don't know what super sub does. Maybe it just ups your arrow by one. So if you're in a flat arrow and you get super sub activated, you go up one arrow. So that might be the case, or it might just give a boost to stats. But in my opinion, what would be happening is, if they are given a boost to stats, it's going to follow this kind of framework of attacking of prowess, which is offensive awareness, being boosted, and then also a explosive power there in the middle near the bottom, and that also gets plus 12. So explosive power is acceleration. That's what it used to be called. So I do think players that are super subs are most effective when they have high offensive awareness, and in Owen's case, high acceleration. The difference between Owen and Ronaldo is they both have super sub. I give it to both of them. Ronaldo would be if you are trying to get a goal, your opponent's parking the bus, say, you need a super sub. Ronaldo would be for if you think your chance is going to come from playing a lofted pass or a cross, whereas Owen, if you think it's going to come from a low pass and keep it on the ground. So that's why, he has the high acceleration. It helps with him. Gets a double boost on that, or an extra boost if we believe that framework I just shown. And then Ronaldo, he's getting the offensive awareness, and he also has very good aerial abilities. The reason I noticed this though, like probably a year ago, honestly, I've felt this for a while, and it's because I feel like the way passing works in this game is, it's not a simple case of you play a pass and the defender simply intercepts it. I feel like there's a lot more under the hood that's being involved, and I think one of them is, if you play a pass, let's say you have Pirlo, he has great passing stats. You play the pass, when the accuracy of the pass doesn't really matter. It's all about the defensive abilities of the defender. That'll determine the accuracy of the pass. So it's not like you play the pass and everything's kind of free flowing. It's like when you play the pass, the accuracy, the player's passing stats are involved, and also the defender's defensive stats are involved, and also the attacker who you're passing to, his stats, so his offensive awareness, his speed, acceleration, etc., etc. So what I think is happening is, particularly when you use super sub, if a player has high offensive awareness and acceleration, whatever defender is going to intercept this pass, it checks, okay, what's Michael Owen's stats? Okay, he has very high attacking awareness, very high acceleration, and he has a super sub. Don't let this defender intercept. We want this ball to go through. And I feel like I felt like that for a year. And another player that would be similar to that theory would be Haaland, who you can see I've given really high attacking awareness, high finishing, high acceleration, and he's good in the air. And the reason for that is just because it's literally Hail Mary, last few minutes of the game. We're only going to get one opportunity. If we can get a jammy pass to go through to Haaland and he can finish it, we're getting our goal. So that's kind of what I think about attacking awareness, and also super sub, and how important it is for attackers. Now, if we talk about aerial ability, so Haaland would be someone who's good at winning headers, but you probably, I don't know if you've used them yourselves, he probably doesn't score too many headers for you, and he does have low heading stats, but I don't think that's the impact. We've got a different player who actually has the highest heading stats in the game, and is Morientes. So Morientes, I think he has a super sub as well, actually. Yeah, he has super sub. So he has super sub with great attacking awareness, and if we look at his heading, it is, where is it? Yeah, it's 101 heading. So Morientes is the best header in the game. I don't think there's anyone with them stats, and it's terrible. He probably scored maybe. I gave him a lot of games. I really wanted to make him work. I gave him 79 games. He probably scored 4 or 5 headers for me, and they were probably all tap ins. So you can score tap in headers, but you can't score headers that aren't, you know, like the only headers I score are tap ins. I never score headers. Maybe from a corner kick I'll score a flick on header, but I'll never score from just a normal cross and heading it in. Usually the keeper has to be out of his goal. So I don't think headers are good in the game at all. So when I'm building players, I never look at heading. Attackers, defenders, anything. I just look at their jumping. So if I ever put points into aerial strength, it's literally just for the physical contact and the jumping. I don't look at the headers. And Hullet's a player who probably scores the most tap in headers for me, and he has 83 heading, not the greatest stats, but it's decent. So I wouldn't never worry about the heading stat in this game. And then another thing is edge crossing. We got that Ben White card recently. So the people who kind of play a crossing game are probably thinking, all right, Ben White will be good for edge crossing. I have Trent Alexander-Arnold who has edge crossing, and I've played 1,100 games of him. And edge crossing, in my opinion, is not effective for scoring header goals. I think it's most effective for playing a cross. Let's say there's an attacking midfielder making a late run into the box. You play a little pass into him, he chests it down, and he shoots from there. I don't think it's effective for heading. I do think, though, if you do want to play a heading or a crossing style of play, either use visionary pass will work as well. It'll boost the stats of the player. So visionary pass, I have it on Kevin De Bruyne. It boosts the receiver of the pass, either their first touch or their first time shot or first time pass. So for crossing, that makes sense. And he actually partners up really well with Haaland. And then also a phenomenal passing player. So Pedri here is quite good at it. And then in particular, Bernardo Silva, who I gave weighted pass to. So I talked about this in my midfielders video. He is really good at crosses, but I don't actually press crossing the cross button. I press the chip through ball button. I think it's pretty much just as effective, and you get some good chances out of it because he has phenomenal passing and probably because he has weighted pass on top of that. So that kind of covers the first part of the video. Now we're going to talk about box in the box versus goal poacher versus whatever. So the two main attacking playstyles are fox in the box and goal poacher. So we'll get Romario back in, and I'll tell you which one, in my opinion, is better. So I think fox in the box is at the moment one of the worst playstyles in the game. It's very ineffective. Maybe there's a few reasons for this though. Most fox in the boxes are physical type of players. I used to have a Van Basten who I really liked a lot at the time. Thing is, he's not usable nowadays, and the reason for that is because he does have decent stats, but so does someone like Romario, who has same dribbling, but he has better dribbling stats, better pace, better balance. He has the finishing that Van Basten has, but he also has the dribbling and the pace. And Van Basten wouldn't be a type of player that's that good in the air. He doesn't start with aerial. Like, I wouldn't give him. He's not that type of player. You might think he is because he's tall, but he's really not that type of player. So fox in the boxes usually are traditionally players that are just like good at finishing, not good at much else. And back a year ago, maybe longer, they were very effective because players didn't really have that high finishing. But nowadays, even players like Michael Owen, who's fast, nimble, 2-footed, every Messi card, all these cards have the high finishing as well as the dribbling and stuff. So I wouldn't think fox in the boxes are good as a playstyle. Romario is an exception. He's just a different type of fox in the box. But if he was a goal poacher, he'd be a lot better. But as I discussed in my review and then a few minutes ago, the other Romario is better, and it's probably because he doesn't have the high offensive awareness and then also the playing style. So yeah, fox in the box isn't great. The reason is actually if you play a fox in the box on their own, so that's what I've been doing on the other account. If you play them on their own up front, they're better. Their playstyle activates more. So essentially, if you play them on their own, their fox box is more active. If you play them with a goal poacher, what happens is the goal poacher wants to run in behind, and like basically they run in behind from the start. Whereas the fox in the box, their playstyle only really activates in the box, kind of as in the name, but they will try get into the box to create those chances. But the problem is the goal poacher makes his run first, goes into the box, and the fox in the box doesn't really want to get into the box now. He doesn't really move for it. So Romario's not too bad because he's got good dribbling and he can kind of create with him. Whereas a Haaland or a Van Basten, Van Basten actually doesn't have the worst stats, but he's not quick enough, and they can't really create chances there to get on the end of chances. So that's why they're not that as effective. I feel like if Romario wasn't in the game, there would be no one in the community that would say, "Oh, Fox the Box is a really good playstyle." Because Romario's in the game and he is a Fox the Box, people think, "No, it's good playstyle," but it's not. It's because Romario's a very unique Fox the Box. It's kind of like Beckenbauer is a bit unique. Centre back got great dribbling and great passing, or Rodri's a unique DMF with his really high dribbling. So it's a pretty much an ineffective playstyle. They definitely need to improve it. So in order to fix this, I did a video on playing Romario as a second striker, and he was very effective because now he's inactive. and he's not being kind of deactivated from Owen's goal poacher because he has SS. Like when Owen's playing, it's not like Romario isn't a fox in the box anymore. It's just that he doesn't need to move into the box. He feels like he doesn't need to move into the box anymore, so he doesn't really do anything. As if you make him an SS, he doesn't have a play style. So Owen running into the box has no different impact really on Romario. So he's definitely a lot better, more free. He moves around a lot better. So I do think Romario as an inactive play style is very good. So that's inactive playstyle at second striker, and it's a very effective playstyle. But what about inactive at centre forward? Well, I've always used it. It's always been fine. I used to use 2015 Messi up there, Hullet up there, and it was great. And to be honest, I thought it was just those guys that are just good players, so they would work up there. But I'm actually starting to think that inactive playstyle at centre forward is the best, and it's for a couple of reasons. It's basically a perfect blend of deep line forward and goal poacher. So goal poachers, their idea is they want to just get in behind all the time, and they're always looking for that in behind the pass. Like you can still pass into feet with them sometimes, but sometimes you'll notice I'm trying to pass into the feet and they've already ran in behind. For inactive play style, I feel like sometimes, or that I feel like pretty much perfectly, they're always when I want to pass them into the feet, they're there for it, and when I want them to run in behind, they're there to run in behind. So I've been using Maradona at centre forward, and he's been the best player in the game for me pretty much. I used to use him at attacking midfielder, excuse me, like when he first came out, and I didn't really like him. I mean, the first 5 games he was amazing, and then after that, I felt like he wasn't very effective. So at AMF, I didn't like him. At second striker, I didn't really like him either, and he would have had active play styles in both of those positions. I don't think having the active play style in both of those positions is the problem though. I think it was just him particularly should be up front, and when I put him at centre forward, I trained him there. Yeah, I got the position trainer on him, tried him out, and he was amazing. And I used to use the big time Maradona as a deep line forward up there, and he was amazing up there. And I think this one obviously has better stats, but I do think his movement is better as a inactive playstyle. So that's what I would use up front. And to be honest, every single position it works: inactive left wing, right wing, second striker, and centre forward, and attacking midfielder too, which I talked about in the midfielder video. I think the only position really on the pitch where you absolutely need a playstyle would be probably just DMF and centre midfielder. It's not as important in centre midfielder though. And if you're playing DMFs, if you're playing 2 DMFs, you don't need to play style. Playing 1 DMF, you need an anchorman. I feel like really that's the only position in the entire pitch where you need to play style. Um, so the inactive playstyles they work well. It's they just seem to have good AI. They know what to do. Obviously they won't get in behind as much as a goal poacher. Or if it's a classic 10, they won't have the same movement when they're inactive, or if they're a whole player, they won't make the runs as often, but they still work fine. And if you're good at dribbling and you know how to create chances, you're not just relying on the game giving you runs, and you can create chances yourself, they will be very effective. So the reason I like deep line forward a lot is because I'm not someone who relies on through passes in behind to the strikers. I'm comfortable passing into feet and creating chances from there. So if we look at Messi, he's a deep line forward. Now, if you're gonna play a deep line forward, don't play them as a second striker. It doesn't really work because as a centre forward, they will drop deep to about here, we'll say, and get the ball into their feet. If you play them as an SS, they'll drop a little bit further. They'll drop maybe here, which isn't the problem. That's fine. It's completely fine. The problem is when you have them in the exact same position. Let's say I have them as a centre forward, when appropriate, they will make the run in behind if there's a lot of open space and it kind of seems obvious. More often than not, they will make that run in behind. Whereas a second striker is very rare, even if it's very obvious, they won't really make the run. So I'd only play second strikers as deep line forwards as a centre forward, and also you want them in the middle. So you can play them as an SS here, but I don't think it's that effective as a deep line forward. They're not gonna offer as much width because they want to come short and usually into the middle. I think anything else, yeah. So Maradona was ineffective at AMF and SS. He's not as ineffective at SS though. And Messi, this Messi is the same. I wouldn't play him. I'd only play him centre forward. The other Messis though, I would play this Messi at right wing, SS, or centre forward, and even AMF, particularly if it's one of them AMF formations where your attacking midfielder are actually wingers. So it's usually 1 DMF, one centre mid, and then either side 2 AMFs. Play that Messi in that one, and then this Messi can play right wing, right mid, AMF, SS, centre forward, and a left sided SS. I haven't played him as a left sided left winger. He'd probably be fine there too. Now there are two other attacker or centre forward play styles in the game, and those are dummy runner and target man. So in theory, dummy runner should be my favorite playstyle. With the way I play, I would want my attackers to create runs that make space and drag defenders out of position. Because if I'm playing with someone like Neymar, I want him to pick up the ball and dribble into the middle while the dummy runner goes out wide. In practice, though, I really feel like dummy runner doesn't do anything. Back in PES, I think I don't know which was the last PES with the kind of advanced tactics, but we used to have an instruction called wing rotation. So essentially, what it would do is, as I'm saying, if I picked up the ball with Neymar, he would Maradona would run out wide, and then it gives Maradona the space to run into the middle, and then that would give you loads of opportunities because you could run it into the middle and exploit that space, or if you're defender. So if the defender follows Maradona, you run into the middle and dribble. You have free dribble. If the defender stays in the middle and doesn't kind of mark Maradona, marks the space in the middle, you can just pass it out to Maradona if you've got free pass. That was very effective. That's what I'd want to recreate with Dummy Runner, but it just doesn't seem to work in game. I've tried it and I've tried it and I've tried it, and Dummy Runners just seem to not do anything too different than like a goal poacher, say. But the problem is the goal poacher actually makes runs for himself and creates the space. Dummy Runner tries to make runs for others, but it just doesn't work. Another playstyle is Target Man, and Target Man seems to be a bit similar to Deep Line Forward. I would say the main difference between Target Man and Deep Line Forward is when the Deep Line Forward comes short for the ball into feet, he leaves the defender behind him. So the defender, there'll be a bit of space. Whereas the Target Man, when he comes short, the defender seems to follow him and he's on his back. It's fine, but the thing is the Target Mans are they're just the type of player they are. It just doesn't really work in the game, as I discussed with Cross, and it doesn't seem to it's not that effective, that physical play style anymore with how good everyone else's stats are. They just aren't that effective. And I feel like compared to deep line forwards, they don't make runs for themselves in behind as often. Or maybe they do, it's just that the players just aren't, their type of attributes just aren't that uh good, so they don't have too much success with them. So that's kind of covers most of what I want to talk about for centre forwards. I will move back to additional skills I'd put on them. First, I want to talk about wingers. So, two type of winger play styles. Actually, there's three. There's cross specialist and prolific winger and Roman flank. Actually, creative playmaker is also active out wide as well. So, my opinion on wingers is any playstyle works. Inactive playstyle works. Cross specialist though, there is the issue that they do just hug the touchline. So it's pretty simple, like to understand once you've played with a cross specialist. I think Trent is the only really cross specialist I have. It's definitely a very rare playstyle. I think there's a David Beckham cross specialist and there's a Kostic. I mean that's off top of my head. That's like the only ones. They just stick to the wing. Every other playstyle, creative playmaker is most similar to inactive playstyle in my opinion. Inactive playstyle is also similar to prolific winger in terms of their width. Prolific winger is kind of like the goal poacher version of a winger. They just want to get in behind. So if I have a prolific winger here, Martinelli should be one. Yeah, so Martinelli is actually a great example of a prolific winger. Because he's just pure pace, great balance, and great finishing. There's another prolific winger who is good, but I think he'd be better as a roaming flank or a creative playmaker, and that's Ribery. And it's just because of Ribery's great passing ability and dribbling ability. He would be very good if he kind of asked for the ball short more and dribble inside with it. Um, as a prolific winger, your passing isn't really used. You're playing balls in behind and trying to shoot for them or cut in and then play a simple layoff. Whereas a creative playmaker picks the ball up and can play diagonal passes and there's a lot more creative as is in the name. So yeah, for which ones I prefer, I don't really have a major preference. I feel like anything works. The two roaming flanks I have are Yamal and Salah. I think they're both very effective. I think for Yamal, he got a Spain version recently. I have that on my other account, my free to play account. I think I do prefer the Roman flank playstyle. So I do think Roman flanks are better than prolific wingers. But they're harder to understand. But a prolific winger, at least okay, he wants to run in behind, and you can kind of predict it better. Is AI better and play the passes and have a bit more consistency in how you play? Whereas the Roman flanks, if we actually read the description, they tend to cut inside from the wings, so they stay wide and then cut in. Whereas a prolific winger, he stays on the wing and then tries to run in behind. So it depends on your tactic. I can't really give the general advice other than I think a good combo is if you're playing a 4-3-3, have your centre forward, can be Fox the box, deep line forward, goal poacher, whatever. It would work better with a Fox the box or deep line forward though. Have one of your wingers be a prolific winger and the other one be a Roman flank. you just get good options on both sides. Particularly though, if you want to do a false nine tactic, I done a video on this. So if you want to do a false nine and you really want to, your wingers are your best players, say, and you want to score with them, if you put defensive instruction on, let's say we put it on Maradona, what will happen now is when you get the ball, he will actually drop into this area, and what happens is, particularly the Roman flank will drift inside and kind of be like a striker. The prolific winger also does it as well. They might drift into here, say, and run in behind, whereas the Roman flank will drift in and kind of run all the way across. So if you want to kind of recreate, prime Barcelona with Messi false nine, David Villa on the left, and who do they have? Pedro on the right, or Alexis Sanchez. Yeah, you can do that, and it actually does work quite effectively in the game. Now, the next thing I want to talk about then is second strikers. So, second strikers are very versatile. They fit into a lot of different formations. Let me just change formation and see. So, in my dang it, I made a mistake. So this is meant to be my main tactic. So, we'll just worry. Actually, we can build it really quickly. So the main tactic I play at the moment is actually this, and this is it's best with Maradona inactive. It also works with Messi deep line forward, but you have to know how to use deep line forwards. I've used Saviola and Michael Owen up there on Eto as a goal poacher. It still is effective. It's like 90% is effective, but as I was saying, they make the runs in behind just a bit too often. So when I want to play it into the feet of the striker, I'd rather have Maradona as an inactive. But yeah, anyway, as we're talking about with SSs, so these second strikers are basically centre forwards. So for these type of players, you're going to be wanting high finishing. So you can see here 90 finishing on him, 90 finishing on Messi. I would also play Hullet here, and actually I was saying you need high finishing. These are two examples of players with lower finishing, but if you've used them in game, you'll know. Where's Hullet? Is he in the team? Can't find Hullet. Yeah, so Hullet has probably 84 finishing, I think. He's 96 rated. Yeah, so Hullet has 83 finishing, but if you've used him in game or you played against him, you know he's just a very clinical finisher. That's player ID. And then Bellingham, I can't remember if I discussed this in this video because I forgot to record. So I might have mentioned earlier when I was talking about how you level players. For attackers, 90 is probably your minimum. For midfielders, attacking midfielders, wingers, you can get away with 88. Bellingham's really good at finishing. His goals to game record is 70 in 170. So that's pretty good, but it's more effective because he has the level 3 double touch. And I find in this formation, the level 3 double touch is really important on the SSs. The centre forward doesn't need it as much, but the SSs definitely need it. It's definitely more effective. So for this tactic, in the SS position, I would either use whole players, creative playmakers, or inactive playstyle like a Romario or something. For other SS positions, I think if you don't have a deep line forward, you can get away. Let's say you were playing this kind of formation, two up front. If you want to kind of replicate a deep line forward and you don't have one, you can just use a classic 10. So if you use Zico there, he'll kind of come short like a deep line forward would at times, but also make runs in behind when necessary. And then yeah, that's all. And creative playmaker does it too actually as well. So for SSs, I feel like the playstyle doesn't matter too much, except for deep line forward. I think is kind of ineffective at SS. At SS. Jesus Christ, I'm stuttering. I'm talking too much. So I talked about finesse shots with Eto. Just looking through my notes again. Outside curler on Messi. The very high weak foot, how I think it's not as effective as a skill as it should be. Okay, yeah, so now we're going to talk about the skills that are not necessary but can be quite effective, and I'll give you advice on some skills that you might think are effective but aren't actually in practice. So if we start with rising shot, rising shot is really only effective on players with high finishing. The kick and power actually isn't that important. It does help, but my Mbappe doesn't have the greatest kick and power, but he has got high finishing and he has rising shot. Yeah, he starts with it in the bottom left there, and he's very effective. So if you're 1-on-1 with the keeper and you have space, if you hit a rising shot and it goes on target, it's very likely to be a goal. So he's not an attacker, but there actually is a player with rising shot, and it kind of ruins his card. So it's Roberto Carlos. So you obviously want to hit long shots, Roberto Carlos, but because he has rising shot and low finishing, it's kind of ineffective. It very often goes wide or over the bar, and it looks like it's going to be a good shot, and then at the last second it just rises over the bar, and it's very frustrating. So if he didn't have rising shot, I'd probably use this guy more often. So if you are going to put rising shot on a guy, so even if it's a midfielder and you want to shoot with them, make sure they have maybe even just 80 finishing. I wouldn't be able to tell you when the kind of stats become effective again for long shots if you have rising shot, but if they don't have a high finishing, I wouldn't put it on. Actually, if we look at my Mateus, what does Mateus have? 74 finishing. but he doesn't have rising shot. Okay, that's a good thing. Yeah. So I was gonna say I don't really notice major issues with rising shot on Mateus, but he doesn't even have it. So you probably do need like 85 finishing before rising shot becomes effective. Now, if we look at my notes again, so that's the rising shot, dipping shot, and knuckle shot. Dipping shot isn't that effective. Messi, I think every Messi card has it. If you do want to use it on Messi, you'd want to use the 2015 version. I have scored some goals with it, but it's really for style points. It's not actually that effective, and they need to boost it. Like Messi, in a few times in his career, has scored a dipping shot near post, but you can't really do that in the game, unfortunately, unless your keeper moves or your opponent moves his keeper. You'd be able to just do a normal shot as well, so the rising or the dipping shot isn't giving much benefit. Knuckle shot, I'm not the biggest fan of it, except for Ronaldo. Ronaldo has his own animations for knuckle shots, so he starts with knuckle shot anyway, so you wouldn't need to put it on him. Long range shooting, I don't think long range shots are too effective in the game unless you do a knock on. You can score on the edge of the box with them though very effectively. So I kind of okay, maybe I need to rephrase that. Long range bushes like a Michael Essien, Gerrard goal, they're not that effective, but on the edge of the box they are, and you do. Um, you don't necessarily need the skill 100%, but I definitely like if you want to be consistent with them, you do. So I put long range shooting on my Mbappe because he has high finishing and he scores on the edge of the box just fine. It's probably a mix of the rising shot and the long range shooting kicking in. And I actually put long range shooting on a lot of my attackers. I think I might have put it on Eto. Yeah, I put it on Eto and I put it on Kyogo as well. He's not the highest rated. But the reason I put it on pretty much a lot of my centre forwards is just because I do feel like on the like just on the edge of the box and even just in the box a little bit. For some reason, I feel like the long range shooting is still activating. It might not be, but it definitely is outside the box anyway. So must have had a different version of Kyogo that I put it on. Yeah, it's this one here actually. So yeah, I put it on this Kyogo, and it just helps with their kind of all around finishing. It would be a striker's finish, but I do think long range finesse or long range shooting kicks in. Speaking of long range finesse, I do think knock on finesse shots have been nerfed. I do think they were very overpowered before. They're kind of in line where they should be probably. I do think they could be buffed a little bit. You are kind of creating like you have to have a lot of space to do a knock on finesse. Um, for that skill though, I do think you need kick and power more than curl. But curl does help. Like Neymar can score them, but he scores the low power ones more. Hulle scores a lot of them. He does have high curl though, but he has high kick and power, so that's why he can score the high powered ones more. So you're looking for kick and power and curl mainly. Finishing isn't as important. Roberto Carlos now. Let's see how many goals he has. Roberto doesn't have many goals for me. He has 50 actually. He's only ever scored 3 or 4 knock on finesse shots with me because he's left footed on the left side. It's kind of hard to set up a chance. He just got 3 or 4 or 5, but I probably only attempted 5, 6 or 7. So he doesn't have great finishing, and he's got the really high kick and power on curl. Trent Alexander Arnold will be very similar. He's probably only scored. Let me check his goals. He's probably scored. Well, actually, whatever. It doesn't matter. If he scored 10 goals, okay, let's say 3 of them are knock on finesses. He's only ever attempted 5 or 6 for me, and he scored them. So if you have high kick and power and curl, it's very effective. And a player with both of those stats and good finishing is Snyder. And Snyder has scored some outrageous knock on finesses with me that definitely you probably can't do them anymore. They've probably been nerfed. But they shouldn't have been in the game in the first place. And he actually no, never mind. He doesn't actually have the high finishing. It's the high kick and power and curl. So for the knock on finesse, you don't have to worry about the finishing too much. Except for the low powered ones might need the finishing, but also you get away with the curl being high. Another bunch of skills. The level 3 double touch obviously is really effective for beating players, but if you've been watching my streams, you know how much I use the double touch shot. I talked about it in the Franquinho double touch shot tutorial. For cut behind and turn and Marseille turn, I would only recommend one of them. A player like Neymar has both, but I do think you only need one of them. Particularly if you're better at dribbling, you'd probably want Marseille turn. If you're worse at dribbling, so Owen was a mid tier dribbler for me. I know he has good dribbling stats there on paper, but he doesn't really feel that good. Probably because he doesn't have double touch. I put cut behind and turn on him, and he has very high weak foot. So I think if you have very high weak foot, you'd be more likely to put cut behind and turn on him, just because you can face the right. Like let's say you're right footed and you're kind of facing the right wing on the edge of the box. Just do a cut behind and turn, and you instantly have a free shot with your left foot. That's very effective. Chip shot control. I don't think chip shots are needed in the game. You don't need to do them. It does help though. Chip shot control definitely is a skill that helps a lot. It's not one of these skills that isn't really impactful. I also talked about in my midfielders video how chip shot control also gives you new animations for chip through passes, surprisingly, so that's good. Fighting spirit. Now that's a skill I put on a lot of players. If a player is like really, really good for me, like a Messi, Romario, I'll put fighting spirit on them usually. So I think I have it. Do I have it on this version? Yeah, I have fighting spirit on this version. I should have it on my World Cup Messi as well. Yeah, so I think I have fighting spirit on him. I have it on Romario. I have it on a lot of players. Fighting spirit. The reason I put it on is obviously, if we read the description, actually, it helps with stamina, it helps with adversity, and it helps with pressure. So fatigue is obviously low stamina. Adversity is scripting, pretty much. If you feel like scripting's in the game, it probably is. Honestly, I think at times it is. I don't think it's a major issue though. I think it's just you have to roll with the punches. That's what adversity would be. And then under pressure is if your opponent's defenders are near your player, they have worse stats. They're kind of under pressure. If you play FIFA, it's similar to the composure stat in FIFA. The fighting spirit just helps with that. So I'll put it on my really good players that I want to just be effective all the time, players that don't get substituted off pretty much, and it helps there, particularly with dribblers. It helps dribblers perform to their best abilities under pressure, um, and kind of in congestion. Like I said with Messi's for if my opponent's parking the bus or playing five at the back and I need to weave in and out of the box. So that's what fighting spirit helps with. Another skill that helps with that, and I have it on Messi, is heel trick. Just if you ping a ball into the striker low, even actually if it's off the ground a little bit, you can do a heel trick and flick it on, keep momentum going. Gamesmanship, I don't have it on Messi. Gamesmanship used to be a skill I would put on all my players pretty much. At the moment, it's actually not at the moment. It's been for the last 6 or 7 months. You don't need gamesmanship on your attackers really because they've nerfed gamesmanship and you don't win penalties anymore. So gamesmanship feels like it's not as active in the box as it used to be. I used to win a penalty. Honestly, pretty much every game I used to get a penalty. Maybe every two, maybe every 3 games. I can't remember actually exactly the numbers, but if I was playing a low rated opponent, I would win a lot of penalties. But it also would work against high rated opponents, but not as often. But gamesmanship, yeah, they don't seem to give the fouls in the box anymore. It's only outside the box they really give them. So I wouldn't really put it on your centre forwards as much, but on your wingers and stuff, it's still effective. And I talked about it in my defenders video and my midfielders video. It's good on these guys because if you're getting pressed from the front and you make a bad decision and you get under pressure, a bit of physical, if they have gamesmanship like I have on my Vieira and I also have it on my Gilberto, you'll win the foul, you'll fall over and you can start again, start building up from the back. Um, Another skill for wingers / second strikers would be pinpoint crossing. So I like pinpoint crossing on players that they're not. The point is they're not meant to be good at crossing. You want pinpoint crossing on your players that are very good at shooting. So I did have it on Salah before, and I still have it. So basically, if you're a player like Messi or Salah, you want to cut in and shoot, particularly with Salah because he has blitz curler, your opponents are scared of it. Your opponent's gonna read that you want to come inside, and he's gonna cover the middle. So what is going to happen? He's probably going to give up the byline to you. So what you want to do is you want to have pinpoint crossing. So if you do dribble outside, you can hit a cross in, or you can dribble to the byline and dink a ball in. And what that does is it tells your opponent, I know Salah. It's kind of like Iron Robin. I know Salah is very good at shooting. I know Messi is very good at shooting. I want to pick up the ball with him on the right and dribble inside and shoot. But I will cross it if you give me the space. So if you have pinpoint crossing on him, it'll work. You don't have to worry about his lofted pass being low. His is 64. Honestly, I think if you have pinpoint crossing, you don't really need high lofted pass. I feel like if I have a 64 lofted pass player with pinpoint crossing and let's say a 90 a player with 90 lofted passes, if you have the pinpoint crossing skill on this Salah with 64 lofted pass, let's say you're probably 70% as effective as the player with 90 lofted pass. And the thing is, even if when you dribble outside and the cross isn't effective, that's not a problem. It doesn't really matter because you're just doing it to teach your opponents. Don't just cover me cutting inside. I will cross it too, and they're not gonna let you cross um too often or let you go down to the byline. So then he will have to worry about both sides, and then you can cut in and shoot pretty effectively. Before we move on, blitz curlers. I think blitz curlers maybe have been nerfed. People always say that to me. I didn't really play the game the week they came out. I was too busy, so I don't think I've seen them at their highest ability. But I never really hit blitz curlers from deep anyway, from far out, because I like to get high percentage shots. So I dribble into the box. I think blitz curlers are very effective in the box, which is actually surprising because I always hear people say the opposite. They're really ineffective in the box and they don't want blitz curler. I think they're very effective in the box for two reasons. One, if a defender's near you and you hit a blitz curler, I feel like the blitz curler lifts the ball over the block that the defender's going to do. Secondly, even if your keeper or your opponent uses manual keeping, I find that blitz curler can still beat the manual keeping even if he picks the right corner. So yeah, that's why I would recommend blitz curler. Not try hit the long range shots to them as often. Just kind of come into the box, maybe just on the edge of the box too. Okay, two passing skills: weighted pass and low lofted pass. I definitely think both of these skills are more effective on the players deeper in the pitch. Although I do think one of them can still be effective higher up the pitch. So I think weighted pass can be effective for attacking midfielders and maybe wingers. But I don't think low lofted pass is effective. I think it's definitely a skill reserved for players that are deeper on the pitch. So I have Bernardo Silva, and as I was saying, with the crossing, I think instead of hitting crosses with Bernardo Silva, if you just hit chip through balls, um, and use that weighted pass on him, it becomes a lot more effective than, well, not a lot more effective than hitting crosses, but it's basically a good substitute, particularly for Bernardo Silva, who is left-footed, we want to cut inside. And even if you had the space to go out wide, he probably isn't fast enough to flick it onto the right foot and then hit it in. And actually, what's his weak foot? Is it only it's only medium as well. So yeah, you wouldn't hit crosses with him in traditional sense as a traditional winger. You'd want to put inside and hit that kind of diagonal cross, which I think the chip through ball is probably more effective for. Another skill, Rabona, is a skill I've only ever recommended for one player, and it's Neymar. I don't think it's an effective skill. Honestly, if I was playing as meta as possible, I wouldn't put Rabona on him. The only reason I have it on him is because if you do a fake shot with a certain, if it depends on what strong foot your player is. If you're left footed or if you're right footed with Neymar on the left, you can run down the wing, do a fake shot. It'll do a fake Rabona, and the animation's quicker, and you can exit from it quicker. So I wouldn't put Rabona on players. I just put it on Neymar just because it's fun. Another skill that is effective on wingers, but actually isn't effective for the centre forwards, is sombrero. If you'll notice they added this animation a few months ago. It's I don't know what they call it, but if you play a long ball out to your winger and it's a bit loose, if you flick in your right stick and do a sombrero, he'll take it over the defender very well. The reason I don't like sombreros on forwards is you'll notice if you do a sombrero and it does the animation where you try to flick it over your own head, it'll kind of hit off your body often, or if it doesn't hit off your body and it does go over, the defender just gets the ball. It's a animation that does the Jesus Christ, I'm talking too much. I need to slow down. It's an animation that just doesn't really work. However, you can still do sombreros with your centre forwards if they don't have the skill. If you flick in the stick, it'll just lift the ball a couple of feet, and that's very effective for turning and shooting. But if you have sombrero, they'll do that animation where they try to flick it over their own head, and it's just not effective. So I don't like having sombrero on my centre forwards. I think Romario is a player that, yeah, he has sombrero, but I wish he didn't. Now there is times where you do the flick if you're at a certain angle, where they don't do the flick over the head. They do flick it, a couple of feet and keep it close to them. So it's not like you can't do that flick with players with sombrero, but I just rather the sombrero skill. I just don't think it's effective in the middle of the park. Another skill that's effective is scissors feint, but I think it's particularly effective for tall players. Yeah, it's particularly players with long legs. So if you've ever used Ronaldo, he starts with scissors feints and he's very good at them because he has long legs. So you can start the animation from further away and it'll draw the defender in. He wants to tackle you, and because you're further away, like essentially what a scissors feint is you're trying to feint, and what your opponent thinks is, okay, I'm gonna get the ball, and then you just exit the other way and release. But you want to be far away from the player to do it because it gives you more wiggle room and more leeway. So taller players have longer legs and they can do it too. Another player that would be good at it, I actually don't have scissors feint on him, but I swear I had it on him on the past. I think I might have taken off scissors feint for acrobatic finishing because I think that is more important. As I said, it is a necessary skill. So yeah, Kaka is quite tall, but he has long legs. So I think players with long legs, but they usually are tall players, are good with scissors feint. So I talked about blitz curler and how it might have been nerfed, but I still think it's effective. Next skill I want to talk about is phenomenal finishing. I don't have it on this account. I have Havertz with phenomenal finishing. I've probably played 20 games with him. I haven't noticed phenomenal finishing once on him. The thing is, when I play against that Showtime Ronaldo with phenomenal finishing, and particularly Showtime Mbappe, I do notice phenomenal finishing. So I do think it's definitely it can be an effective skill. I think it's more effective for players that are fast and can dribble. or if they have very high weak foot like Ronaldo, you just ping a ball into him and he hits it off balance. But particularly if he has very high weak foot. But I wouldn't be the best judge of phenomenal finishing. Gianni has a lot more experience in phenomenal finishing, so if you have any questions about that, ask him. Speaking of Gianni did a video today on the new Haaland, who unfortunately doesn't have phenomenal finishing, but he did talk about visionary pass in that video. So I think I talked about it earlier, or maybe it was in the recording that when I attempted to record but forgot to. So visionary pass would be good for playing a player like Ronaldo or Haaland, because it gives a boost to his first time shot touch or passing. So it's more stiff players. If you have a visionary passer behind them, it's good. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is a kind of underrated uh, element of the game, and I talked about this skill in the midfielder video, but I also think it's very good on attackers. So if we take a look at, where is he, Rumi. So Rumi has track back, and it helps him press from the front very effectively. He actually doesn't have great aggression. He does have 66. He can get it to 70. I have gotten it to 70 before, and it is a noticeable difference. Another player would be Martinelli, has track back. He doesn't have the aggression. I do think, however, though, my Griezmann, he has the engagement 69. Oh no, he'll have 70 aggression when we go in game, yeah. So I have Griezmann with 70 one aggression, although he doesn't have track back, so he's kind of the same as, he's probably actually a little bit worse than Rumi with track back without the skill. Do I have a player with track back and 71 aggression? Oh, I do actually. I have them, two of them here. Yeah, these would be the two best examples of it as well. Hullet is very good because he has track back and great aggression, so that's why Hullet's so annoying to play against, because he can just win the ball from the front. And then I should have Bellingham somewhere here. Am I blind? Bellingham is, yeah. I put track back on Bellingham too because I wanted to basically he's my substitute for Hullet when Hullet's tired. A caveat to that though, I do think you don't need to substitute off Hullet because even with low stamina, his aerial ability will still be there, so he is good. But I just did want the extra option. So, looking at my notes, we've only got a few little things left to talk about. So, I do think long ball counter versus possession and quick counter does impact what type of players you should be using. So, if we go at the start of the video, we talked about kind of tiers of dribblers. So, we put Owen and Rumi into the mid tier dribblers, and if you remember, the mid tier dribblers are, you need to prioritize their speed more because they aren't good at the little intricate dribbles in the box. They're dribbling at speed more. Whereas someone like Saviola would be a high tier dribbler, and he doesn't actually. Saviola probably does have the high speed, but he wouldn't have the good physical. So he has, actually no, he doesn't have high speed. Never mind. I think the booster one does. So the booster might have higher speed, but say high speed is 95. So I wouldn't use Saviola in long ball counter because in long ball counter, the you need the player to run into space because it'll take a little bit longer for the support players behind to come up, and you won't have the options to dribble into pressure and then release a pass. You need to run into the space and wait a bit longer for your players to kind of catch up with you. So Owen would be good at that because he has higher speed. He can run into the space easier, and Rumi would be the same. And Rumi also has the additional benefit of he's a bit physical. He's got decent physical stats, as you can see here. So if you're playing long ball counter, I wouldn't use those dribblers. Actually, I would use them, but only in the middle, and that means you probably only have room for one of them. So if you're playing long ball counter, if you were playing Romario, I wouldn't play him out wide there. Let's say you're just playing. If you're playing long ball counter, you're probably playing traditional meta. So you're probably playing a formation like this. For this out wide SS, you'd want a Rumi or an Owen, someone that can dribble into space, and then you can have your high level dribbler in the middle there to kind of beat that those centre backs as we were talking about. In terms of attacking, I know this isn't really about builds, but if you're gonna go all out attack and chase a lead, I don't recommend going all out attack. And I'm talking about when you press open the D-pad and change your mentality. Reason for that is that will force a centre back to go up and join the attack, which maybe you want the physical presence, but instead I just go into the game plan and create a tactic like this, and then substitute Romero off for like a striker and just play like that, and then just go on attacking mentality. So that kind of sums up all the tips off the top of my head. Actually, I did put a post up about an hour ago on my channel and asked people if they have any questions they wanted to answer or me to answer. So we'll pull up these questions now and see if there's anything I didn't talk about in here that people asked. So he's just saying good luck. Rock choke from Hussein. Alright, so no one's asking questions. They're all just making fun of me. How much passing needed for attackers? 81, 84, 85 of Cruyff. Okay, so for your attackers, so we talked about Now, I don't think one touch pass is necessary on centre forwards. I do think it is on AMF still. Well, not necessary, but it is helpful. And true passing is going to be necessary on all of them. So for answering Mohammed's question, I don't have a rule on passing for attackers. As long as you put true passing on them, there's no rule. It's all just about how many points is it going to cost you. So usually I'll level passing last, and I'll just try get it. If it's on 68, we'll try get it up to 70. If it's on 78, up to 80, stuff like that. So I wouldn't worry about the passing too much. It's usually an afterthought, and then you just put the leftover points in or get it to a threshold. This guy's asking about Xabi Alonso, but that's not an attacker. Why do players with good finish sometimes miss easy chances after running or dribbling for long distances? Does that have anything to do with stamina? Why are some players better than others at finishing even with lower stats? Can you explain the difference between speed, dribbling speed, acceleration in game? It gets really confusing. Okay, so to answer the first question, obviously it's just statistics. Like sometimes you're just gonna miss, but in particularly, it's probably you don't have acrobatic finishing, and that was one of the skills I recommended as a necessary skill, particularly for dribblers. Something like a Martinelli, a Neymar, or a Messi, you're gonna come inside and dribble. You're gonna be a little bit off balance, and you want the acrobatic finishing to help with that. Why are some players better than others with lower stats? So that would be the kick and power, the curl, and the player ID. So we talked about kick and power and curl. We didn't really talk about player ID though in detail. So players that have player ID would be Yamal, Hullet. Adriano has it actually for the finesse shots, Kubo. So you'll notice Dybala has it too actually. I talked about that in a video a few weeks ago. Some players just have different animations for for shoots. Shots, shoots, Jesus Christ, I've been talking too long. I'm basically illiterate at this point, which isn't about talking. Actually, I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so some players just have ID, and some players just have the juice, and some players don't. So, in order to identify those players, you can identify through kick and pair and curl. But if you want specific animations, you just have to use them in game and figure out that way. And can you explain the difference between dribbling speed and acceleration? Actually, I'm making a video on that. That's going to go in depth. It uses regression analysis and stuff to help us understand, but it's just taking me a long time. Using my dissertation at the moment, I can't really put the time into that. But essentially, dribbling is how fast you are with the ball. Ball control is your first touch. Oh, he's not asking about ball control actually. Sorry, that's about speed. Acceleration is basically your speed over a short distance, and speed is your top speed over a long distance. So acceleration is how quickly you reach that top speed, and dribbling is how fast you are on the ball. Does curl really affect shooting, or is it irrelevant? So we answered that with the finesse shots and speed. So I just answered speed there, and physical contact and jumping. So I definitely notice jumping. Physical contact is something I don't really worry about. I do notice it, but I don't worry about it. I honestly wouldn't worry about physical contact. Give Saviola progression. Okay, so we've used Saviola as an example a few times in the video, so we can get the build there. How important is curl? Does it affect crossing? Yeah, it does. As Shura is replying, it does, but more so if you're using pass assist 3. If you're on pass assist 2 or 1, it doesn't impact as much. But it definitely does affect crossing and stuff. But I wouldn't think it's a necessity thing. I don't think if a player had high lofted pass and low curl, it wouldn't make them a bad crosser. Do you think physical contact and affects nimbleness? Check Musiala's stats. Okay, we'll have a look at Musiala and see what who is it? Dizzo is trying to point out to me. So I have a Champions League Musiala. I think it's this one. I don't know if this is the one he's talking about. No, it wouldn't be this one. This one has low physical contact. I actually don't know which Musiala he's talking about. He said Championship one. So which Musiala would that be then? We'll try this one. It has a German flag on. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what Dizzo's actually talking about in regards to Championship Musiala. And then, Hi Rock, are you planning to release new Showtime cards and builds from Camavinga? I'm not gonna make a video. I can make a post, so if people want. But yeah, that kind of wraps up. Or maybe actually there might be another comment because I didn't reply to a few. Yeah, that kind of wraps up all of the attacking guys. If there's any further questions, post them below. I'll try to get back to them. But thanks for listening. It's a long video, one of my longest, but I appreciate you guys. Bye.